Hey, thanks for checking out Nuts and Bolts with Tone, and welcome to my channel. So I have a 2008 6.4 Powerstroke with a misfire, low cylinder, smoking out of the tailpipe like a chimney. And so I scanned it, found a misfire on cylinder 2 and a cylinder contribution on cylinder 1 and 2. Power balance showed that cylinder 2 was completely dead. So I suspected that we had an injector nozzle that broke off. Maybe it was overloading the cylinder, blew up the piston, which is a common failure on this 6.4. And so I sold compression tests to see if it needed an engine. Unscrewed the glow plug, and when I went to pull the glow plug out, my magnet got stuck to something else inside the valve cover that wouldn't come out of the hole. So we're gonna go ahead and go through this repair, and we're gonna be pulling off the driver's side valve cover. We're gonna be pulling off both valve covers, but for now, the driver's side to see what we found. And let me show you how to get to that, and let's see what's going on with this. So step one to the glow plug is to pull out this wheel well, some 8mm, 5.5s, and some clips. That doesn't matter. First step to this valve cover is gonna be disconnecting the batteries, taking the driver's side battery out, disconnecting the coolant hose right there and right there, and you're going to have 4 bolts, 4 13s right there, there, and there, and disconnect the upper radiator hose, and we're going to go ahead and get this coolant bottle slash vacuum tank out. You can see it's out. Before you do that, you're going to disconnect the coolant. So now you can see I've got the upper radiator hose disconnected. I'm going to go ahead and disconnect these coolant hoses right here, and the coolant hose that goes from the turbo actuator to the fuel cooler. And then now we're going to go ahead and take this fuel cooler out. You're going to have some 10s around the perimeter. You're going to have right here, you're going to have some nuts that secure the bracket from the lower bracket to the upper bracket, and then also the dipstick for the engine oil. We're going to go ahead and get this fuel cooler out. Now the fuel cooler, I'll show you when it gets out, but it has where the turbo comes out and goes back in. So it's going to pop off, and you can see right down there, there's one of the connections, and there's the other connection to the turbo. Let me get this out, I'll show you what it looks like. Back here, you're going to have an exhaust back pressure sensor. You're going to need to loosen the fitting down here so you can move this out of the way. One of the nuts, this is going to go on the stud here, and one of the nuts is going to go through there. And then you're going to disconnect this coolant hose right here. Be careful because this pipe is plastic. And you're going to you'll disconnect your glow plug connector down here and pop all your glow plugs out. Be careful because they'll pull out like this right here. This was like this before I got it. Go ahead and just take this exhaust back pressure sensor off completely. We're going to go right here and disconnect both of the fuel lines to the fuel cooler. There is a washer above and below each one of these fittings. They are 17mm, and that fitting right there is 16mm for the exhaust back pressure sensor. Here's what it's going to look like when you get it off. Usually the pipe right on this side stays in the turbo. It came out of this one, so I'll show you that. But there's the turbo right there, and there's the fuel cooler off. So it's going to look like this right here. So you got your coolant connection here and here. Your fuel lines go here, and this is your 2 connections for the turbo. This pipe came off, not a big deal. You can replace these seals. They're really hard to get out. I only replace them sometimes. I won't on this one. So there you go. And it's going to look like this. You're going to have a bracket down there which attaches with 3 bolts here, and you're going to have 2 10s up here. I just loosen these bolts here to allow it to come off easier and to go back on easier, so I have wiggle room. So now we're going to get over here to the valve cover. So you're going to have to finagle your harness around the pipe, and just take note of where your studded bolts go, and then all your bolts. And let's get this valve cover off. You're going to pop your glow plugs out. Don't forget your glow plug harness out. Here's what your valve cover looks like when it's off. Be careful, some of these bolts, sometimes they fall out. Sometimes the grommets let go. So valve cover's out. Now let's see what's going on with this. So when I was trying to pull out the glow plug, here's what attached itself to my magnet. Now this is a valve bridge. So the valve bridges work like this. So here is, on this side of the injector line is one rocker arm, and on this side is the other rocker arm. So what it does is one rocker arm goes on a valve bridge right there, and it pushes down the valve bridge, which operates two valves at the same time. So what is really common in these engines is for this to happen. So the rocker arm falls off and the valve bridge comes off, and then it doesn't operate a valve. Now this one is not good because there is metal and one of the little balls is sitting down there. I can see it. Let me grab a magnet and I'll show you. All right, so let's look right down there. Oh, I just got it. All right, so that's the little ball from the rocker arm. So the rocker arm's supposed to have a ball in there, and that's it right there. So that's good, we found it. It would be all bad if we didn't find it. You can see this rocker arm is just jacked. So what I suspected happened on this truck. The rocker arm fell off and the bridge fell off, and the bridge is what my magnet stuck to. What happens on these 6.4 Powerstrokes is that it has a DPF, and that is a diesel particulate filter. Well, in newer vehicles, we have DEF injectors and all kinds of new technology. In the older style, what they did was, when the exhaust valve opened, it would turn on the fuel injector and dump fuel downstream, and it would heat up the DPF, and then in any sense burn the soot off. Well, what happens is people don't drive these trucks like they're supposed to, so when it goes into regen, they turn them off, and that fuel just goes into the crankcase. And then you end up with your oil is full of fuel, and then your lubricating factor is not there, and your engine starts to wear. Unfortunately, the most common wearing point is the rocker arms, and they end up falling off. The only way to fix that is to replace the rocker arm assembly, and unfortunately, to replace the rocker arm assembly requires a lot of other parts. Let me show you. So on this one here, since it was smoking and I suspected the piston was damaged, I pulled the glow plug out, and the tip of the glow plug is there, so I don't suspect that the piston blew up on this one, but I'm still gonna pull out the injector. So what I found was the valve bridge is here, and this is what the rocker arm rides on. This one's not worn, but usually it wears like almost a hole in this bridge. So you replace these bridges with the rockers. So this rocker fell off. You can see how worn it is and how bad it is right there. That's from the wear. On this one, I got lucky because here's the ball that was in the rocker. I was able to retrieve this out of the head. Here's the clip that holds the rocker to the shaft. Unfortunately, this is plastic, so even if I lost a piece, it's not so bad. Let me get something to point with here. Okay. All right. So to do this repair, you don't have to take the injectors out, but you do have to take off all the injector tubes and the fuel rail. So when you take these injector tubes off, you have to replace them. So to do this rocker assembly on one side, you need 4 injector reseal kits, which comes with a tube, a crush washer, an O-ring. I think it's just 1 O-ring, 1 crush washer, and the tube. So you have to pull all these tubes off, disconnect your fuel line over here, and pull your fuel rail out. And then you unbolt your rocker arm assembly, take it off, and then you pull all your valve bridges out. and then, you know, reverse order. So on this one, what I'm going to do is, if he authorizes the repair, I'm going to go ahead and pull out this injector. I want to replace this one just because of the smoking, the dead hole. But I want to pull all the injectors out so I can inspect the nozzles and the tips, so I can see. I don't want to put this all back together with a new rocker assembly and new fuel tubes to turn around and have a bad piston. But on this one, luckily, since it's right here, if I do this repair and we get all done, once I put everything back together, before I put the valve cover on, I'm going to go ahead and do a compression test on this cylinder and make sure that the cylinder doesn't have a dead hole, because if it doesn't, then I'm going to recommend doing the other side. So let's see if he authorizes it, and then I will show you how to replace these rocker arms. Now, one thing that you can look for in these 6.4s is most of the time, actually almost every single time I've ever had a rocker arm fall off of one, it will come in, and when you rev it up, it will give a whooping sound out of the intake. Whoop, whoop, whoop. It's a very distinct noise. You'll never forget it once you hear it the first time. This is the first time I've seen this happen and I didn't have the whooping noise. We're gonna go ahead and take this apart. Now, one little tip is, if you push in this hole right here on the injector while pulling the connector that way, it will pop out. You're going to take all these fuel lines off. They're 17 millimeter, and once you get all the connectors off, you're going to go ahead and unclip your harness. You got 3 clips. You're going to just tuck this out of the way, and we're going to go ahead and throw all these fuel tubes in the way. These are garbage. You're not going to reuse these tubes. You got to get new ones. And on this one, we're going to go ahead and pull out this number 2 injector. It's a T45, so we can see what the tip of the injector looks like. And if it looks okay, I'm going to pull the rest of them out. Once we get the fuel rail out, you got to take all these fuel tubes off, and you got to take the fuel rail out. So you're also going to have a line back there, the fuel supply line to the rail. You got to disconnect that. And we're going to go ahead and unbolt this rail, and the rail's 10 millimeter, 2 of them. And we'll get the rail out of the way, and then we can get the rockers out. So once you get the fuel rail out, it's going to look like this right here. So this is a bar. Let's see. So this is a bar that comes across and your rockers go through it. You have 2 bolts per rocker. Technically, you need to loosen it, move the cam to a certain position, take some bolts out, move them. I've never done that. What I do is I go ahead and just loosen them up slowly, and just work my way back and forth until I relieve all the pressure and get them all off. And you're gonna go ahead and get these all off. Now, don't forget the ball in the end of the rocker right there. There's a ball there, and sometimes when these are worn, that ball falls out, just like the one that we found. So you wanna make sure that you pay attention to those balls. So I went ahead and took out my 1 injector, and the end looks okay. So I went ahead and took out my 1 injector, the number 2, and it looks good. The tip looks good. I don't see anything abnormal. So I'm going to go ahead and pull out the other 3, and we're going to compare them. All right, so I'm going to try to show you taking these out. It's going to be kind of hard because I'm doing it over my camera. So you're just going to slide them out one at a time. Your push rods are going to come out with your, are going to want to stick to your rocker. So this is the one that was missing the rocker. You can see how beat it up it is, right there. And the other one's falling off right now. Let me try to get one that both of them are going to come off of. So you want to hold on to your push rod as you pop it loose, so your push rods don't pop out. This one just lost its ball, so hopefully it didn't go too far. Oh, it didn't lose its ball. Oh, the ball, I'm sorry. The ball that we lost was in here. The end is just a little knob. That's right. The ball is in the rocker right here. That's how it rocks, is from there. I was mistaken on that. Bridges are all going to come off. So you're going to keep an eye on all of those. They're going to pop off. This one has a pretty good hole. What I was talking about right there. So let's try to hang on to these push rods, pop the push rods loose. These all sit on that bar. I'll show you as I get it out. The light that I have set up is not shining on this, so let's see if we can pop this loose. Okay. Oh, we just lost part of the push rod on, part of the rocker on this one. I heard it fall. So that one went right here. So this is what I was talking about. You got to watch out for this stuff. This is the end of the rocker arm on that last one there. So now, got all this off. Now we have to do, now the only other thing that you want to do in here is you want to just make sure that your rockers stayed in. And the way that you can tell is you kind of pick up on it, and when you put it back in, you'll feel it kind of suck in. And that's how you know it's in the lifter. If it had popped out and was cocked to the side a little bit, then you would have big problems. And then you would have a misfire. Here's the box that the rockers came in. Be careful, because the rockers, the last 2 times I've got them, they've fallen apart. So this is the worst one. This one I had 3 rockers that were off and 4 balls that were out. And so I had to put them back together. So you just want to make sure that right up under here that you see that brass ball or whatever it is. You want to make sure all your balls are in there. I had one sitting on here with no ball. So make sure this is all together. You're going to go ahead and lift your rockers off of here like this. Okay. And then you're going to set this in there. It's easier to just set this in and then put your rockers in one set at a time. You want to make sure that when you put them in, that you get your push rods in these holes. All right. Before you do that, make sure you get your valve bridges. So here's the valve bridge right there. Okay, one per pack. So make sure you put your new valve bridges in. They only go one. They go either way. It doesn't matter. And then you're also going to need one of these for every injector. This has got the white O-ring, the copper washer, and the supply tube. So once you get your rocker arm assembly and your bridges in, you run your bolts down and then just slowly tighten them back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. You don't need to move the cams. I never have. So you tighten them all down, evenly. Just go back and forth. Take your time. And then it is right here. I had it up. It is 45 foot-pounds. So we're going to torque those down, and then we're going to get the injectors ready to go in. And then once I get this all together, I'm going to compression test that cylinder to make sure that I don't have a bad piston. So, and then sometimes if you want, when you put your valve bridges on, you can put a little bit of oil on everything, just so it doesn't start off dry. I usually will take a little oil squirter and squirt a little bit of oil, so everything is lubricated when it starts to move. So we're getting everything ready here. One thing that you could do is your bolt holes for your rocker arms. You can see this one's full of oil. If I try to put the rocker arm bolt in there, it's going to hydro lock. So you want to take an air nozzle and blow all these holes out so they're not full of oil, and get all your valve bridges on. If you're going to replace any glow plugs or do any ejectors, get everything ready to go. So you're going to want to get them all in, get them all started by hand. Just kind of go across. You're just going to kind of, a little screw gun's not going to be able to tighten down enough, but you're just kind of going evenly across the board here. And then we'll tighten them down a little bit more. Once you get them all running like this, what you want to do is take a mirror and look at both sides of your rockers. Of your push rods, to make all your push rods are in the rockers before you torque it down. And then each one of your rockers should be sitting on a valve bridge. Okay. And then also make sure you clean out your injector bores while you're at this stage if you took any out. Waiting on an injector, so we can't torque it yet, but you see I got everything in, fuel rail, all new fuel tubes, injectors are in. I wrote it down so it's the easiest way to understand it. The injector hold down is going to be 18 inch-pounds. Then you're going to connect the tubes and tighten them to 18 inch-pounds. Then you're going to do the injector hold down bolt to 28 foot-pounds. Then you're going to tighten the tubes to 106 inch-pounds. And then you're going to turn each tube nut 60 degrees. So each one of these flats is 60 degrees. So if this hump right here is on top, make a mark right there, and then you're gonna turn it like that, and that's 60 degrees. You're just gonna turn it one full flat. And one last thing is you wanna make sure that you tighten the tube nut at the injector first, then the rail. Now I can tell you right now, if you do not follow this procedure correctly, this engine will not run, you will hydrolock it, you will have all kinds of problems. Once you have everything torqued, don't forget to put your harness for your injectors on. Go ahead and clip all that, and then connect your injectors, and then go ahead and clean everything up. If you're gonna be putting glow plugs in, now's the time. I'm going to set this up to crank it over and check compression on this number 2 cylinder. I got a new injector in there. This is 6.4. You don't have to program these injectors into the computer. So from here, you're gonna get your valve cover ready to go back on. All right, I couldn't show the compression. Someone was helping me, but this is my compression gauge. It hit 350 pounds and cranked over evenly. And so I suspect that everything is gonna be okay. So now it's time to get the valve cover ready to go. So your valve cover bolts are 80 inch-pounds. Once you get your valve cover on, if you want to torque it, when you put your fuel cooler assembly on, go ahead and put this one on and tighten it down. Leave this one disconnected. You need a special tool to bleed this system, and I'll show you how to set that up, but you're going to go from this back line here. All right, here's the tool you need to bleed the 6.4. This is a bolt, a banjo bolt from the front of a 6-liter or a 6.4, or even the banjo bolt that goes there. What you do is you drill out the center and you put a fitting on here and then a clear hose, and we're going to just put this into a 1-gallon bottle. I'll show you, into an empty coolant bottle, and all we're going to do is turn the key on, and you're going to see all the air bleed out of this, and as soon as all the air bleeds out of this, we'll be able to take this out and put the banjo bolt back in, and the truck will start right up. I'll show you that when I get it set up, but this is the tool that you need. This is the tool you can make. So before you put your bracket in, you want to go ahead and get your glow plug harness in. If you're using a new one, you want to lube up the part that goes into the valve cover. It's a little difficult to get them in. This is a Dorman one. Ford doesn't make. We couldn't get one from Ford for this side, and I'm having trouble getting them in. So we're going to lube them up, and you may have to use like a hammer to pop them in. Once we get that, I'm going to go ahead and put this fuel cooler back on. So make sure that you've lubed everything up. And then the only other tricky part about over here is you want to make sure how your harness lays. This one goes up to the turbo, goes up through there. You want to make sure that you put this in the right spot and have all your connectors connected before you connect this hose, because once you put this hose on, you can't undo, you can't reroute the harness if you don't have it in the right spot. So just make sure that you do that. So here's the setup for bleeding it. You're going to come off the back one right there. You're going to turn the key on a few times. It's going to run the low pressure pump, and it's going to pump fuel up through here. You'll have to cycle the key every so often. Let me get the fuel going before so you can see it. All right, we'll just do that. So there you go. You just want to watch until most of the fuel is bubbles. I mean, until there's hardly any bubbles left. There will still be a little bit of bubbles. You're not going to get it where it's completely no bubbles, but you want to have it where it's most of the way no bubbles. And then it should fire right up if you've got it bled properly. And here we are running. Smooth, no misfires. Sounds pretty darn good for a 6.4. Now that you've seen this, you should feel pretty confident replacing these rocker arms and making this repair, replacing the injector tubes, all that stuff. All these parts are still readily available from Ford. Even though they don't make the 6.4s anymore, it was a garbage engine, and they know that they still break and people still fix them. So they still have the parts. All the parts I got, fuel tubes, injector, rocker arms, all in stock. So thanks for watching the video. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell, you get notified of all my future content, which you definitely don't want to miss. I'll see you next time.